There are opportunities over the horizon. The journey to get there isn't easy, but there is a way. Over the last couple of decades and in executive roles, I have learned from some incredibly smart and capable people. From the gladiators, the facilitators, the builders, and the innovators of industry. So let's talk business, and let's journey together. My guest today is Mel Yarbrough. Mel Yarbrough is the Chief Executive Officer of CCRCorp, a 45-year-old legal publishing company. He is former CEO of File and Serve after its divestiture from LexisNexis, former COO of leading fixed wireless provider TowerStream, and he has held senior executive sales leadership positions at information services provider Dun & Bradstreet. What's it like living in Austin? I mean, it's kind of like the Silicon Valley in Texas.
There's a creative slant to this city.
Yeah.
The restaurants are creative, people here are creative, and I found they're somewhat laid back with that. They work hard, they believe in a work-life balance, of course. They're really big into that.
Yeah.
But I found I've become more relaxed being here than living in other cities. I'm actually more relaxed. Cheers. Wait, we're in an Italian place. Salute.
Salute. Speaking of Italy, you think empire building, how Rome, through organization and innovation, basically sets the tone for the globe and then builds this empire. What does it take for someone to actually start with an idea, a kernel of an idea, and organize people around that idea to eventually create something that, for lack of a better word, dominates the market?
Right. Well, Rome wasn't built in a day. That's the first thing I think of. So, and it wasn't by one person. I think that's what's key. You have multiple people being inspired, taking ownership. And look at Amazon, with AWS now, which is nowhere near, when they started, right, it was books.
Yeah. Right.
So you look at so many companies, I think, that get to a point, there's a transition with people and leadership, and they get to a point and they're comfortable. This is all we intend to do. We've now dominated this particular market. There's no intent to go to a new market. There's no intent to continue.
What does it take to actually have the right, or maybe there isn't a right set of investors, maybe it's the investors you have, to bring them along with you on that journey?
Let's use the word vision. You need to be in concert between the board, management, and where you're taking the company. So in B2B, typically you have a sales cycle, on average, 9 months. I mean, you can condense it to 3. Some sales cycles are 3, but the customer is going to buy, depending on the product and service, they're going to buy on their timeline.
Right.
You can't condense it too far. It's good. They're going to buy on their timeline.
Right.
It's not your timeline.
Because they've got budgets.
Yes, they got their process.
Yeah.
It's their internal process. So the more complex the solution, the longer it will take. If you're selling to government, even longer.
Yeah.
You've got to factor that in to how long of a runway you need, because you've got to hire a sales team, you've got to train them, then they have to begin filling a pipeline. That may be 9 months before you see your first sale.
Right.
So if you're on a 2 to 3 year plan, how far really are you going to go?
Right.
That's why it's important, at least in B2B, to have a vision of there needs to be enough runway. You need enough time, and you need to have investors who are dedicated to that long run. That's where we are today. We're tasked with prudent growth. Smart growth is really the word. So I don't know if you saw, speaking of television, HBO, so ESPN did a documentary. They've done a couple. It's not 30 for 30, but they had one where they had Belichick and Saban together. Two of the and so they actually, the guy, Belichick and Saban, they go, before you start filming, it was just them talking, really. They said, let us talk privately.
Yeah.
So they kept the cameras rolling, and all they talked about was still business. It was nothing, you thought they would talk, it was just more business. It just seemed the same as the rest of the, that's kind of like us. We're still exploring ideas and talking.
That's right. So,
give us a moment to do what we're just already.
No, we always do anyway, right? What is the most recent book that you've read about business or otherwise that has had the sort of biggest recent impact on the way you think?
The one I've utilized, I think, the most in the past, at least 2.5 years, is Good to Great. So the last company I was with, company was 50-something years old.
Yeah.
So it was a good company.
Yes.
But if we want to take it to another level, the applications, the ideas in Good to Great, I think, really resonated. It's opening new markets or selling new services, utilizing that brand, leveraging what's already there. And that's what's happening here where I'm at today. So it's okay, we have, we've been around 45 years. So we have customers that love us, we have a brand. Again, it's leveraging that, and now we're gonna move that flywheel faster. Well, one thing you don't wanna mess up, you don't wanna make mistakes with the existing customers. Back when I was at TowerStream, we had 4 successful acquisitions. Mm-hmm. And your first instinct is to go in and just start changing the way they operate. But the more prudent course is to understand why they do what they do first.
How do you balance between the need to basically introduce change into a business model with this idea of being able to keep your current customers happy? There's a book called Innovators Dilemma.
Yes.
By Christensen, I think
Yes.
he wrote that. And so it talks about that struggle.
I would go back to, you want to understand the history of the company, how it got to where, how did it get to where it is? What do the customers value the most? Voice of the customer is important. So
Yes.
just from a Gestalt perspective, if they're telling you there's something they don't like and you hear that enough, it's an opportunity for your company to be better.
Right.
You shouldn't turn a deaf ear to that. You should say, okay, well, what are they trying to tell us,
Right.
first of all?
Right.
Then, in terms of innovation, quite often it's difficult for the customer to innovate. If you want to rely on the customer, it's to validate your innovation. Now, how you innovate, that's a whole nother, yes, you want somewhat of the voice of the customer.
Right.
You want to do, surveys, you want to talk to them, but ultimately you have to come up with that innovation on your own.
Yep. And then
There's a leap.
And then test it out in the market. And
Correct. Test it, refine it.
And then, test it
Correct.
again and
Yes,
refine
test
it.
it, yes.
So growth, revenue growth. So how do you take an existing sales team that may be producing, average sales, maybe lackluster in some places, and turn that team into a high-performing sales team?
That's a great question. Let me start with this. It's a lot of small dials. It's not one big dial, like driving leads, if you can drive leads. Okay, so marketing is a big dial. If you can drive leads through marketing, think of the funnel. If you can open the mouth of that funnel and create more leads, then that's the simple answer to more output given whatever the close rates are. But not all businesses lend themselves to leads. The more complex the solution, the service that you have, then the more consultative the sale and the less leads matter. But looking at the sales force itself, you just want to hire, there's these categories. So selection, recruitment, training, compensation, motivation, recognition, supervision, termination, I hate to say that, but you do need to have a process for each of those categories. You essentially want to hire the most results-driven people that you can hire. Train them properly, motivate them, give them a compensation plan that they believe in that does motivate them, and do what you say you're going to do. Companies really fall down when they change their plans midstream or they don't pay out when they're supposed to. There's nothing more I think that would demoralize a sales team than a company not living up to its word. It's not a perfunctory job where it's not like accounting where people just come in and get their work done. They do work, but there's an emotional aspect to this. They're trying to persuade someone to a close. And in any sale, there is an emotional element to it. So it's not just offering up the benefits. It's not that perfunctory. It's not that mechanical. But given all that, you can tweak those dials. You get the right team doing the right things. Goes back to Good to Great. Get the right people on the bus in the right seats, doing the right things, and point the bus in the right direction. I really believe that. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mel.
Thank you.
It's always been an honor working with you and working for you,
and vice versa. My pleasure. I've learned a lot from you. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah. All right.